everyone, and welcome back. Joining me today in the Leaders Lounge is Michele Matthews, who's the Chief Operating Officer at AG Hair Limited. I'd like to provide a quick bio introduction of Michele. Michele Matthews has been a key contributor to the success of Canada's leading hair care manufacturer, AG Hair, for over 27 years. As Chief Operating Officer, Michele is responsible for helping to set the strategic direction of the company in the ever-changing and fast-paced hair care industry, and working to enhance performance by aligning leadership, business strategy, and culture. She's responsible for providing strategic direction and leadership to AG's operations, people and culture, and IT departments. Michele is a certified executive coach from Royal Roads University. She holds a CPHR designation and is a graduate of BCIT in Human Resources Management. Michele, welcome and thank you for joining me today. It's a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm very privileged to be here, so thank you.
That's great. I think we can talk a lot about what's been going on in the past year for you, and of course, many people who see you as a model. So let's talk a little bit about what you've learned about your team and the future leaders within it over this past year, because it has been, you know, an incredibly challenging year, I'm sure.
Well, I would say the past year feels like 10 years, if I'm perfectly honest. You know, I go back to last March and April, you know, and our top line sales really ground to a halt because our customers were closed. Our major customers, our chain accounts, our salons, everything was closed. And so top line sales ground to a complete halt. And that feels like, as I said, 10 years ago. But the learning for me and for our organization is just how incredibly resilient and agile we are as an organization. One of our core belief statements is we believe collaboration is the key to our success. And that's really what it took for us to pivot the business. We stopped making our hair care products and we pivoted to manufacturing strictly hand sanitizer. And we did that in basically from start to finish, brought the product to market in 4 weeks, which is incredible, but it really comes down to team. And so it's really stepping away and learning about how resilient we are. And I hate to keep going back to that word, but it's just so profound for us.
Of course. Yeah, no, I did see that you were able to do that and pivot and obviously produce items that were in need and still are and remain in need, as we know, because we're still using that. So that's amazing. But during that, I mean, obviously your employees, people that work with you, your team, I mean, there must have been a sense of doubt. And can we really execute this? And can we really make money and still stay employed? Like, how did you motivate yourself? Well, yourself, I'm sure you're able to probably, but your team, obviously, who really is looking for leadership. How did you do that?
Well, I think that transparency, being really clear about and creating the way forward. We, you know, part of it for us is, you know, we've been manufacturing gels for 30 years. So it was right in our wheelhouse and it made sense for us in terms of how we move forward. But we had to make really hard decisions and we had to make really tough people decisions with some long-serving employees, particularly in some of our remote sales areas. And so we had to really ensure that we had a good strategy, that we clearly articulated that we engaged people in the process. It wasn't done behind doors. It was done in the full spirit of transparency and getting people involved. And it was really critical for motivation that people know what's going on, because there was so much uncertainty and there still is so much uncertainty in the world that they needed to have certainty within their work. And so being as open and honest as we were throughout it, I think made a huge difference in keeping people engaged and motivated.
How connected were you, I guess, with your workforce? Were you doing this weekly, having meetings with your team daily? I mean, what would you say?
Well,
obviously,
it was like, increased, right? I think minute by minute in the early stages. So we have basically, we have remained open throughout the whole pandemic because we have our manufacturing plant. Right. But the other functional areas, our support areas, finance, sales, marketing, they worked remotely. Distant working. So we've had to do basically look at it from two different areas, if you will. We moved to Zoom right away, and connection is everything, but balancing the fact that Zoom is fatiguing as well. So, but keeping people, we had, floors, meetings on the floor in production every day, again, just to keep people focused and well aligned with what we were doing. And the other piece that we did, I would say, is that we reached out to everybody. Our people and culture department phoned every employee on a weekly basis just to check in and not, talk about productivity or business, but just to say, how are you doing? And I think that was a real key differentiation in terms of keeping that connection alive.
Is that continuing now, even a year later?
We still do that. We still
Yeah.
do, we're a smaller organization, which is, an advantage to being able to do that. But I think that compassion is everything. And this is a human experience that every single person is going through. There's not, it's not one person that's impacted, it's everybody. And we have to look on an individual basis and reach out and connect to people individually. And I think that that's really critical because we're all in a different path of this journey.
Of course. And what about, you mentioned some of the functional areas, have worked from home,
Yeah.
because of course you wouldn't want to bring them in. But how did you feel your productivity was impacted negatively in any way, or maybe even did it rise? Like, what did you see any change?
I would say that productivity was, it's been excellent, quite frankly. I think that, that the at-home work for, the introverts of the world is probably their natural sweet spot. And we've actually not seen a dip in productivity. We measure productivity, particularly, in the operations and KPIs across the organization. And we've seen consistency. We've seen that this actually works. We've seen that, the at-home versus the in-office works as it relates to the output of productivity. Right. It's the connection that you have to.
I was going to say, because obviously when it comes to innovation or feeding off each other, that's probably missing, right? And I guess, has it stunted any of the innovation or ideas for strategy or for growth and so on going forward?
It's because we are, so, we've broken it down that we have company-wide monthly Zoom calls where we are connecting everybody, and we start from there and we just basically cascade down so that everybody is having a reach out or a connection to a colleague or somebody or their direct manager on a daily basis. So it's making sure that that happens. And as a result of it, we've actually seen some really interesting collaboration as it relates to some of the functional areas, for instance, IT and marketing. And it's really opened up our eyes in terms of how we work together. And it's providing opportunity for a new approach.
That's great. Now you mentioned, the human connection on a weekly basis that was occurring last year and even some of it this year. How did you, create any new ideas for maintaining the well-being of your employees? Any novel ideas, thoughts around that in terms of making sure that, they're staying positive as much as they can?
Well, one of the things that, mental health has always been a really big focus for us in our organization. And we did a couple of things early on. We have sick days, so we have paid sick days for our employees. And we changed the language to wellness days. And we did that intentionally so that people could take the day, if they had a day that they just needed to lie on the couch, they didn't have to try to phone in and basically say that, they were sick, or they just could take the day, use the days how they see fit with the purpose of being well and wellness. So we started to shift our language in terms of how we approached it, which was, I think, key. One of the small, I would totally recommend for any organization initiative that we implemented was, and we continue to do them, is bi-weekly meditation series. So we have a meditation consultant that it's done via Zoom. It is during work hours. We have it at 8:30 every second Thursday. And it is a 45-minute meditation workshop. And we essentially meditate together. So you're on black screen, and it's been significant. And we have had an incredible amount of participation in that. And so it's sending those messages about that wellness is important. We increased the benefit plan for psychological services, and we did that very early. And we've done a real big push on the employee and family assistance plan. So really keeping all the levers that we have open and dialing those up. But it's about the language, and it's about the, making it okay that your well-being is critical and important to us as an organization, and we're going to make sure that we support you in that.
Michele, I commend you on that, especially your last element with respect to the employee assistance program, because I think now more than ever, employees are looking for someone to turn to, given the crisis, not only from the from the health side, but as you say, because of the pandemic and specifically, what effects that has, but the effects are more than just the disease itself, as you said, mentally,
Absolutely.
the anguish, the fact that many are suffering financially. So having an ability to speak to someone about these issues is a great notion. And thanks
It's
for sharing that
everything.
with members. It is.
Well, and it's the family as well, too. It's not just our employees, but it's the impact of,
Right.
of the family's well-being.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
the more we look after each other, the stronger we are. So.
Correct. Yeah. Oh, there's a huge ripple effect, and of course, if someone's family isn't doing well, the individual is not going to be productive at work as well. So you're right on
Exactly.
that. So thanks for sharing that with our members. Obviously, from what you've said to date, and what I know of your organization, you clearly have a very strong culture. So how have you, and what have you done, I guess, to maintain that culture, to make sure that people feel united and that they're believing still in the aspiration of the organization?
Well, I think that, one of the things that we've always done that has been inherent in our organization is that connection, and is that bonding. So, we do a lot of social and a lot of informal meetings. And so what do you do when that's missing and trying to replace it? It's difficult. And so what we've really focused on is a level of care. And I think that is, as I just spoke about in terms of some of the well-being initiatives, but, we moved to the monthly company-wide Zoom meetings, and we added a surprise and delight element to each of them, something that is, as simple as gift certificates for dinners for their family, to larger care packages, if you will. So in terms of just, again, keeping people connected and engaged, and not letting culture go by the wayside, because I think that it's easy to do that in the absence of the fact that everybody's working in their own at home or in smaller groups. So we've had to actually make extra effort and be creative and think outside the regular structure of how we've normally done that. And it's sometimes it's the small things. It doesn't have to be the big things. It has to be the small things. We've recently given all of our employees cases of 10 cases each of hands-free hand sanitizer that they can turn around and give and gift people in their lives just as a thank you. And so it's just really an opportunity as an ambassadorship and connectivity. So just small things sometimes make the difference.
Can I ask you a question around the hand sanitizer? Are you branding
Yes.
that under a different name, or is it under your company name?
It's under AG. So
Yes.
we've got a whole new body care. It's been a whole line extension that's come out for us. So we started with the hands-free hand sanitizer, and we've got the body wash and the lotion. Body wash is coming, hand lotion or hand soap are out. So
yeah. I relate somewhat. I worked for Avon products
wow.
for 11 years. So we made a lot of body wash and things like that. And of course, perfumes and lipsticks and makeup and all of that. So I can relate to some of the product lines that you speak of. So brings back the old days for me. Let's talk a little bit about the future of work, if you don't mind, Michele. Obviously you've seen a lot of change this past year, tremendous change, but what do you think will stay with us? What will change? I mean, how do you see the evolution of work, particularly for, people, I guess, who have not necessarily a plant job, because obviously manufacturing may not necessarily have drastic change, but for those working in offices, etc.
Well, I think that, again, it's, we've learned that, the traditional Monday to Friday in the office, it's not really required. It's not really necessary from a productivity standpoint. and people delivering on their commitments. People can do that from home. We realize that. So I think that for us, the next normal, it's not a new normal, it's the next normal, because I think it will continue to evolve. It's going to be a hybrid. It's going to be people in the office with flexibility, people working from home, allowing those, introverts to work in a environment that's most natural to them, and the extroverts that need that connection to be in the office. So I think it's going to be a blend, and it's going to be something that's co-created with our employees, because I think that, we don't have all the answers. They've experienced it. So we need to engage them and bring them into that process and co-create what that next normal looks like. And I think ultimately just remaining flexible, because, it's just, there's still so much uncertainty, but taking the learnings that worked really well, leveraging those and going from there.
Of course, that's great. Yeah. And Michele, I'm going to bring you back. You mentioned earlier your major pivot at AG Hair, because you went from normal hair care products and of course to hand gel. But I'd like to maybe focus in a little bit on HR leaders. What advice would you provide to HR leaders with respect to change management? Because clearly this is an element of change management. Should they be leading the charge when instances of like what we've just lived through has occurred, or should they be waiting to have someone else lead it? I mean, what would you recommend in terms of
as HR professionals?
Professionals, yes.
Well, I think that there's never been a better time for HR professionals. This pandemic, companies have leaned on HR leaders for expertise, for leadership. And now is the time. Now is the time to continue to actually rise up, I would say, and deliver as a leader for the organization, because we are the subject matter experts as it relates to people. And so I think as far as change management, it always just starts with yourself. I think, start with your own mindset, your own thinking. And, there was always this idea of the seat at the table. And I've always personally believed it's like, just take the seat. And now is the time. So continue to rise up.
That's great. I've said the same thing. You're right. I've seen this as a tremendous opportunity for HR to step up and lead the way. And, none more than ever. Our profession is really the go-to profession this past year. And we've been relied on by employers and even government. I see it today. We've been, called upon even as an association to really help them address the issues, the systemic issues, and also elements of legislation. So I think we really should be proud of who we are as a profession, and what we are as a profession, I should say, and how we contribute. So those are great value added items that you've just mentioned. So Michele, well, that really ends the interview today. Thank you so very, very much again to have taken the time and give us your insight as to what your organization is doing and what we can really face in front of us in terms of the profession. And I'm sure we'll get through this over the next few months, and we'll be in a better place. But thank you again for making the time today. It's a real pleasure having you on, Michele. So
thank you
again.
Anthony. My pleasure.